animators and artists. Have you ever had a question about storyboarding action scenes but weren't sure who to ask? In today's discussion, we have Chase Conley, a director, storyboard artist, and designer whose production credits include Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts, Ultimate Spider-Man, Black Dynamite, and Teen Titans, the Judas Contract. In addition to his work storyboarding and directing, Chase also teaches artists how to storyboard dynamic action scenes. And that's not all. Also joining us for this discussion is Errol Petgrave III, a character designer and storyboard artist who completed Chase's class and shared an animatic from the course, which we'll be discussing. So we invited Chase and Errol onto our stream to discuss the project as well as their advice for artists interested in improving their craft. Chase, Errol, welcome to the stream.
What's going on? I like that intro. Though. You got it all out in one.
Thanks, I practiced.
Cardio on point.
All right. So, Chase, how would you describe your storyboarding dynamic action sequences class?
Well, I think that what it sheds light on is the process. So I think that a lot of times that's where people get hung up whenever it just seems like a lot, right? When you're looking at an animatic that's finished, it's moving, it's timed and all of that kind of stuff. So I really just try to demystify the process because I think that that's how you plan. And once you kind of understand the process, how I break things down, I set check marks and milestones for myself in order to keep everything organized. Once you have that laid in and you got your good groundwork, then I try to teach you how to embellish, punch up pacing, milk scenes to build up the tension, all that kind of stuff that it really gets you invested in an action sequence and keeps you on the edge of your seat, So I try to introduce that and also give a structure that's kind of open-ended enough that people can inject their own ideas into it using the script. So Leo Barris, who's one of my collaborators, we worked on a project called Sola together, and I worked on that for the class as the example, and she wrote a script for the students, and in that script I told them, hey, you can inject your own characters in here. This is an opportunity to world build. I'll help you with that as well if you need some direction with that, and mainly just learning how to escalate properly and to make sure that everything is clear. And clarity is king. So making sure that that's clear and that you're able to follow everything. And I think that that's a good place to start for a lot of people. So that's kind of what we highlight. And I think in finding that process, people are open to manipulating that to and customizing it to their own skill sets. And I just try to help them. It's really about confidence building because you want to try to, especially storytelling, it's all about intent. And so, anything that you can do to build up the confidence of that person to make a decision, to commit to a decision, I think is beneficial to the storyboarding process, especially working in a professional field, because you have to make decisions in order to hit deadlines. So I just try to highlight all that kind of stuff and a lot of other stuff as well, but that's kind of the basis of it.
All right. And Errol, how did you find out about Chase's class, and how would you describe your experience in that class?
So I found out about Chase's class a couple months earlier because I had taken his energetic character design class from finding out about it on Rad's How To School at the time. So that class was its own experience, really learned how to go for styles and improve a little bit of the bad habits in drawing that I had before. Because everybody thinks they're the best or really good until you get critiqued and you're just sitting there just with the face okay. I had to catch myself a couple times but I meant this. And I was just all right, just close my mouth and listen because that's what you're here for. But that class was great in itself. So by the end of that, Chase told us he was doing storyboarding class. And I had always looked at storyboarding like it was really, really cool, really interesting after seeing so many really dope animatics. But I was always scared of the process or sitting down and committing to it. He said it was a mystical thing and didn't know how to approach it. So taking his class and seeing his process really demystified it and broke down that analysis paralysis for me. So it was really great. He told us about, like he had the scripts, he read the script with us, told us his thoughts as he was going along with it. and then did the shoebox method to really set the location for everything, so we know where everything's going to be throughout the scene. So, and he has his great advice of you can't design while you draw, because you have to know what things are going to look like necessarily before you use them, and you can't just do them both at the same time. It'll eat up too much time and rack your brain. So that really helped. And just going throughout, really sitting down and setting those intentions and making those marks for yourself, because it's real easy to just get high off of watching everybody else's things, and you're thinking you're learning, but you're not learning until you actually sit down and do it. Then you're just like, So I had to go through that process, and it was great. The class is great. The homies are great. We all still hang out and push each other. So I wouldn't have made it to that point without them. So shout out to We Chillin' Otherwise.
The best Discord group ever. So I had to throw that in there.
I'm really glad that you had a good experience in the class. Errol, would you like to share the animatic for the surprise guest project?
Yes. So do you want me to share the video itself, or just scrub through the scene now?
Let's share the video. Let's take a look. While we're putting that together, Chase, what is the Surprise Guests project? You mentioned a little bit about the script, but what sort of skills is it intended to help artists demonstrate or develop?
Well, I think it's the idea was to give everybody a little bit of everything. Give everybody a little bit of character moments, some room for levity. And really, because I want you to get introduced to the characters, so that you can maybe establish some subtext between their relationship. Because I think subtext is everything. So just trying to teach our students how to extrapolate that from the script, how to build on that, and really, like I said, it's more about adding to your level of immersion. Like having characters interact with the backgrounds and things like that, and all the while building tension from a very pretty simple plot that gives you the idea, it gives you the ability to kind of just expand on it in the way that you want. I think that's probably the main thing, especially, and then also escalating action, and learning how to properly pace beats, so that you can tell who's winning and who's losing, screen direction, all these things that are important, and tracking where the point of focus is from cut to cut, so our eyes don't have to dart around. Mad Max, they were really great about that. Every time they cut, because there's so much going on, every time you cut, everything you need to focus on is right in the center of the screen. And so you're able to track that chaotic kind of action and stuff like that. So, just introducing those kind of concepts, and as that function as a checks and balances for you as you're going through, and just trying to keep that, like setting, like, I guess the better way to say it is to building a skeleton, right? Giving yourself a strong skeleton, and then you're able to embellish on that and build it out as much as you can. So I wanted to leave it, open-ended in that sense, but those are the main things that we try to focus on. So it's not such an insurmountable task for people in terms of skill level, because it's very levels in class.
I think one of the challenges in action scenes is just making something that the audience can read and understand.
Right. Yeah. Clarity is everything. And most of the time, that's what it's about. A lot of times people make things a little bit too cutty. That's our first instinct is to just cut. And it's like, no, let's consolidate all this for several reasons. One, it might look better to have more of that happening all in the same shot. And also it saves you another background. You don't have to paint. We're trying to save the design team. If it's something that you're doing yourself, you got to be as economical as possible. I mean, and contemporary anime was birthed out of economy. I mean, that's the whole style of it, right? The whole mindset behind what it used to be with these tricks and things like that. And so just giving your planning, and figuring out the most streamlined ways to show stuff, so that you can concentrate on the most potent parts, and learning where to dial in and where to kind of let off the gas,
All right, Errol, are we able to play the animatic?
Yes. Here we go.
All right, awesome. Character designs are great.
I love them too. Yeah, it's you tighten them up so much since since the beginning. It's cool to see.
Thank you.
He got pieced up. That liver punch.
Mhm.
I would transform too if
Oh,
I got mopped like that, yo.
Give me my liver.
Right?
Can't forgive her.
Oh, so we fighting. Mm.
Roar.
Man's out of here.
So I think I saw two moments where the characters really interacted with the sort of scenery around them. There's one moment where the werewolf character was tearing up the sort of street, and I think the was the Buffy sort of character did a flip around one of the light poles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The use of the scenery, like certain things came to me like as I was going along, but yeah, trying to do that, and it's still hard even in the shoebox phase. Like, oh, I forgot like to have cars or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I was really trying to just focus on certain types of beats and then take what I could. So I was like, oh, I did want to try to implement the landscape or the background. So I was like, oh, let me have her do something like that. It was either that like a wall flip or something, but it was, I decided to just have the Celine character, Julia, just beat him up. Like, I don't care. I'm tired. You made me stay up past my bedtime. Like, you about to get it. So, but yeah.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a normal walk home, though. They were so nonchalant. That's why I liked it. It was like, yeah, this is just what happens every day.
I wanted to say this question a little bit later, but I feel like I have to ask it now. Errol, what was the inspiration and design process like for the characters in this sequence?
Oh, yeah. So when we were doing thumbs and everything, you're like drawing like stick figures and stuff. But as I got into the process of roughing it out, like I needed to know exactly what they look like just to help me along the process, because that's what the job is, like you're drawing characters. So I took what I learned from the previous class and wanted to make actual like character designs and expressions and model sheets and stuff. So I was like, what can I do? Okay, they say they transform. What's my favorite go-to monsters? Vampires and werewolves. So I was like, bet, no brainer. And then who was one of my favorite vampires of all times? Spike, of course. So I went back and pulled that reference. And I was going to do, for the werewolf, I was going to do Ray's from Underworld, Kevin Grebbio's character. But I was like, I like him too much. I don't want to see him get pieced up. So I went back, and then I decided to do Quint from Underworld 4 Awakening. beefed him up a little bit. If you've seen that movie, he's the one that turns into like the super huge, like monstrous lichen. And I was like, we're not gonna go that big. We're gonna keep it scalable. So I did that. I had the design process for him and was pushing it, had people's feedback off of it. But I had like the vision, just trying to translate that underworld energy, and looked up some other references like to the Sacred Beast or something like that. It was a Crunchyroll anime, like where these soldiers turned into they were experimented on chimeras of some sorts, and they transformed and stuff. So I was like, I love that. Let me use that reference. Was pulling up those underworld shots, and then for Buffy, I had my Spike, and then really just one-to-one. Like, he has such a great design. I was like, we're just gonna, people will know, and like, hence you, Mike, you identified immediately. Like, so, but they never transformed into man bats, right? So for that, I went back and thought of Blood Plus for like the Chiropterans. I just love that name, Chiropteran. I'm like, what does it mean? I don't know, but it sounds.
It's intimidating, though.
It's like a bad order or something like that. So I like when vampires had that, and in Underworld Evolution, Marcus turns into that bat creature as well. So I was looking at that as inspiration. I went back to Batman the Animated Series to see Kirk Langston as the man bat, and just seeing how to capture that energy as far as looking at reference and flying and stuff like that. So yeah, I was just like inspired, like, oh, this is what it is. You get really hyped, and there's one thing seeing your characters standing still and posing, and just now you're telling stories with them and getting them to move. And I was like, that's the energy I was missing, because I was starting to get still, like lose a little passion for it. Like, I'm just drawing these characters. Okay, I need to make a move, So that was really, really cool for me. So then Layla and Julia, got my girls Celine and Buffy in there. Not one for them, changed it up a little bit, but had that leather look. And then Julia, she's cold and stoic, really capturing that Celine energy. And then Layla was more playful, and Buffy Summers is, just in the name, so she's more upbeat, brighter color and everything. So I tried to diversify the way they fought as well. Just like, I wanted to have Layla do more kicks and stuff, but she was like kind of boxing and that kind of fast pace. And then Julie was just like, I'm gonna just hit you hard and cold. Like, yeah, it was fun. I'm like really inspired to like do that more, and just keep going back to my like references and inspiration to create more things like that. And Chase really helped me like understand that process. Like, yo, you just gotta see what you love, take it, and just use it how you can, and just keep reinventing it.
Errol, I really love your description of your process. I think that's really fun and refreshing. Would you be able to bring up the character designs on screen just so the audience can see some of the amazing character designs that you made for this animatic?
Yes, I can. Let me go to...
And Chase, what are important considerations that artists new to storyboarding action scenes might want to think about?
Well, clarity is everything. Clarity is everything. I think it's really planning as well. I always talk about drawing a shoebox and making a path of action, where scene to scene, once you've thumbed out everything, well, one, you do a shoebox, and if there's other people, incidentals in the scene, you want to populate that. But planning at where everyone is in the scene, using a shoebox. Now that you have that, you go through and you thumb your scene. But I think just keeping that in mind, clarity, not getting too cutty. If you can consolidate shots, like if you can, and also a lot of times people put the camera too close. Pull the camera back. When you look at certain action sequences, like some of the Shaw Brothers movies and stuff, Jackie Chan, Wu Ping's choreography, right? You got these nice wide shots a lot of times, and you're seeing, because these are real martial artists that are doing this stuff, right? So you get a chance to see the action. They don't cut around. Like the antithesis of that would be like Taken 4 or something like that. Like something that is like so cutty that you can't make out what's going on. But yeah, really just pulling the camera back and allowing the audience to kind of see that stuff. And another trick I love to use is that makes all the difference, right? It's like, one, you want to pull out occasionally, and turn to a wide, because you're doing all these quick cuts with action. You want to pull out occasionally to a wide to reorient the audience as to where everybody is in relation to each other. But the way that you can do that interesting without, making the action feel stagnant, use like cut on action. And I always encourage people to cut on action. And so if somebody's moving like this to throw a backhand, and you see them in a close-up shot and they cock back and they move at camera, you hook up the next pose exactly in the wide shot. So then, and just make sure that you're following screen direction, so it still feels like the motion is still moving from screen left to screen right, etc. And then in the wide shot, you have that pose here and you continue that. And boom, and it slaps the person. But when you play it, it feels like you're rotating cameras, like you have multiple cameras set up in the scene. But it's really just sleight of hand. So I think just keeping those kind of things in mind. Like I said, the most important thing I think that I always would like, clarity is everything. Pulling out every now and then to show the why, to reestablish the audience, and then learning how to cut on action in order to give it that kind of like real cool live action feel. I think those are the main things I look for. But of course, there are other things as well. But those are very important, I think.
Errol, what was the most challenging or rewarding part of this animatic project?
So I think the biggest challenge for me was just trying to get the ideas down and commit to them. Like I had so many inspirations for things like Chase just described, like those types of martial arts films where they actually show the action and they don't cut on it and just mess it up. And then my inspiration for animated projects were like the DCAU and Name Castlevania and stuff like that beforehand. So really showing that choreography, I think for me, trying not to set the bar so high that I was going to disappoint myself not reaching it. So just accepting myself for like where I'm at now and getting it down, and I'm learning along the way. And then I think as well as like trying to draw looser instead of not so tight, because drawing character designs, like I want to draw so clean, and some of these may be really clean, and like depending on the pipeline, you should probably draw looser depending. So I was like, along the way, you can see like the evolution of like my drawing styles of finding out what worked for me. But then also like just wanting to have it done, when remembering that things take time, because that's what it is. Like you have to enjoy the process. Like you'll get to the end result, but I was like, I'm not able to get this much done, or just looking at the clock, and I had to be like, it's fine, you got this much done, you got this much done. And then looking at the little timeline at the end and color coding it just to make sure you can see that progression of completion. Because for me, it took me a little while, because we did the class last year, like summertime, and maybe wrapped by the fall, but I put it down and didn't really start my cleans until like maybe a couple months ago. So I was like, I need to get this done. So I think that was the most rewarding part for me, was just evolving along the way, seeing it come to fruition after not thinking the end was so far away, and you're just sitting down and just doing it. It's like, oh, this is really becoming something, like, okay. And just hanging out with the homies on Discord, seeing everybody else finish theirs and like really pushing me and just giving their advice and other ways to help plus it really encouraged me and reignited my fire to cross that finish line. And here it is.
Fire. Yeah, I love these designs.
Thank you.
So dope. They're so thorough too, because I mean, we had continuity. Like you did both classes, so it was cool to kind of help you inform that shorthand and stuff as well. And I could tell the difference from the beginning to the end. Your in terms of just your intent, hitting planes. I can see that improvement. It's cool. It's cool to see.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Errol, I just wanted to say you're getting a lot of compliments for your art in the chat tab, so I just wanted to pass those on to you.
Thanks, y'all.
Chase, has your experience as an instructor had an influence on the way that you provide feedback as a director?
Yes, and interesting. I mean, it hasn't changed my intent, so to speak, like my theory behind the reasons why I do stuff. But because, in storytelling, it's all subjective, right? We do have rules that lend itself to clarity so that we can convey things. But it is, you know, you can make up something, and if it slaps hard enough, there's a new rule, you know? So it's really just about, for me, what the benefit is articulating that abstraction. Because I get great questions sometimes. I'm like, oh, I never really thought about that. Now let me think about how to articulate that. And then I'll go on these tangents in class. Like, so my classes they notoriously go over because I want to answer people's questions. And a lot of times I want to see what my answer is. So being able to pull from that abstraction and really try to articulate that and give it some real form, at least something tangible enough to convey to somebody, I've definitely leveled up in that sense. And and it makes it less stressful. You know, the communication is less stressful. And just having more students, I understand a little bit more as well the common pitfalls that people fall into when they're getting into storyboarding and stuff like that. And I'm able to kind of help them navigate that minefield a little bit, you know, a little bit more efficiently. So for sure. Yeah, that I think that's, and I think about that all the time. Like now that I'm teaching, I don't know how it wasn't, because it's so fulfilling, you know, in that sense.
Yeah. Chase, earlier you were recommending, like, for artists who are interested in storyboarding action scenes to watch martial arts movies. Are there any martial arts movies that you'd recommend? I'll throw this question to you both. What martial arts movies should we be watching?
There's a lot of good ones. You know, I mean, Legend of Drunken Master, you got Iron Monkey, all the Shaw Brothers stuff I really love. And the thing about that is, like, yeah, the speed is there. It's kind of slowed down so you can track. It's like, but I love the dust coming off. You know, I love all of that kind of stuff. But the reason why I say that is because that choreography, if you speed it up, is really cool. And you can read all of that. More contemporary stuff, you know, I don't see that. I think Itmon had some really cool stuff. The Raid, you know, that any of that stuff, any of those guys, The Protector, any of that Tony Jaa kind of stuff, because that's in the yeah,
that's Posey.
That is like the contemporary version of all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I love the Raid movies a lot. Kung Fu Hustle, I love a lot too, because you know that you want to have that threshold of like where the fantastical meets that grounded reality, and when and where to break the physics. You know, like or in keeping that consistent. So I look at things for different reasons. If I want to try to play with the more theatrical feeling, almost it feels like theater in a lot of ways. And when you're watching Crouching Tiger or something that feels a lot more stringy. In terms of martial arts movies, then there might be one contemporary one that's slipping my mind, but I'll throw it to Errol in the meantime, because I feel like there's something that I'm just not that I want to be like, oh, and you might say it, so who knows?
Yeah, you named some. I like Jackie Chan ones. Like I got this 8-movie collection like some years ago, and I need to rewatch them now. As I'm like, oh, I need to learn from these now. I actually learn. So that'd be like the police story ones, like 1 and 2. I forget, it's somewhere on my shelf, but those like specifically. And then back then I love the Tuxedo. So I'm like trying to think of ones I did like when I was younger. Maybe I could go back and reference. But I think at that time, maybe his choreography or the type of film might have changed. But if you look, probably still be those golden moments in there. The Matrix, I went back and rewatched that trilogy. At the top of the year before Resurrections came out. But seeing that and really understanding the long takes and the type of energy and that the fights are dances. I watched some like videos on those just as how to choreograph them and tell a narrative within the fight themselves.
Yeah.
And just for action general, like John Wick. I
was going to say John Wick. You got me on Keanu. I knew it was going to come up somehow.
Yeah, it had to, because I was like,
it was John Wick. I was like, oh, that whole sequence in the last movie in the museum with the old wet man. Oh, that was so good.
Yeah.
Oh, such a cool way to start a movie.
For real. It just like it's escalating. It's like you don't need words. You can see, like I said, it's a conversation. It's a dance. It's like you know what's happening from start to finish. It's really clear. Like, boom. So I need to go back and make another list. But I have like tons of things to say. But like those are just like it to me. And then or even just referencing other types of animation, like the DCAU films, like the ones that have certain types of choreography, I was paying attention to those. Like the Court of Owls, I think one Best Batman Robin, just other types of fights to see how to cut out that action or hit hard, hit heavy, and things like that. How many poses should I have to make it really impact and sell the action? What should the recoil look like? And things I missed, everybody was able to point out for me and just help me push it a little bit more, because like I still have to learn. Friends point out the Winter Soldier, like that had pretty good, like really cool action. It had some shaky cam in there still, but it's like it wasn't debilitating to the point that I was like, okay, this is annoying. So then I know shaky cam really started with the Bourne trilogy for the most part. So it worked at that time to convey the action. I don't think it really got crazy, but then over the years, films tried to copycat that and then really made it worse, as you said, in the Taken films, like it's imperceivable action. So, and shout out to Ernesto for that, like just informing me on all these different things. So
I have another one too. The Bourne Ultimatum, I think, is a great one. That scene, that's that whole chase scene and how it ended with the book. I mean, that was just like, that was perfect. And any just Hong Kong
enjoyed
Hong Kong cinema generally, like from an era too, like that 70s, 80s. I mean, a lot of that stuff is so influenced by it. It feels like a perfect bridge because they were doing stuff on budgets that weren't that insane. It feels like a perfect bridge between a lot of anime stuff that you see in real life. You know, they were able to do a whole lot of stuff, and just their teams, their actors, and the stunt guys and the martial artists involved are, you know, second to none with that too. So it's hard to compete with a lot of that stuff. You go back and watch it now with a different eye, and it might hit a little different, you know.
I thought that the action scenes in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once were really funny and also very readable.
Yes, how could I forget that? Like I saw that twice. Contemporary, that's a new bar again. Like just the choreography, the comedy within it, that narrative escalation. Like I said, everything, use of environment, props, just
Todd Harris, who did the Shang-Chi bus fight, which was really cool. He's also done all the Ragnarok fights and the John Wick stuff. Todd Harris goes by the Brocasso. Got to shout him out. You know, he's a legend out here. But yeah, he's so many cool fight scenes that he's done. If you just check his IG page, you can be like, "What, you did that too?" It's like so many cool things. But anything that he's been involved in as well has always had really dope action as well.
Yeah, follow him.
So back to the animatic. Errol, was there a piece of advice or feedback that was particularly helpful when storyboarding your scene?
Let's see. I think originally, like, what the feedback part was the designing aspect, because I need to figure out these things, you know, and know the location, know how the characters look, and making sure they had a certain amount of proper anatomy so that I could understand the mechanics and how to move them around. Chase was big on that. Like, he reviewed a piece of it and he's like, don't turn around like she's not an owl, you know what I'm saying? So you got to turn her body a little bit more. And I was like, oh, I wasn't thinking of that. But things like that. And when I think it's more observing life more, like I got to get back to that. So paying attention to how things move so that you can really sell the action. Like, it can be stiff. Like, sometimes you can get the point across later, but as you improve on, like, in your draftsmanship and your storytelling abilities, you'll get those poses more. So I think that's pay attention to body mechanics, and knowing the anatomy of your characters can always help. Because that was just something I always done for years. Like, I was just drawing characters, or drawing the muscles and the skeleton and things like that, and just, oh, now I'm having to make them move more. So that helps versus you don't know what you're moving. It's like, I had experience for that before, but in our character design class beforehand, Chase made us all draw the muscles on the characters beforehand so we could understand where the twists and turns are, the bends, and how these muscles are moving in action. So when you turn them, you can do it from any angle once you have that in mind. So yeah, just knowing the measuring twice and cut once.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I also feel like the bit of feedback and advice of I need to observe real life more is something that we can all relate to now after 3 years.
After 3 years of of being in a cave. I don't leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's a nice cave.
Yeah.
Chase, without giving away too much about your class, what can artists think about when improving their action scenes?
Well, clarity is key. Clarity is key. I think one, you want to think about that. You want to think about the physics of your world as well. A lot of us that are into Sakuga, and a lot of people are, when I see their work, I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. But does this character have powers? Can this character actually jump 10 feet in the air? And all of that kind of stuff. And the reason why I say that is you want to be able to add stakes, right? It is a story. It's acting and reacting, right? It's just like dancing. Somebody's taking the lead. You want to think about whose POV the scene is in. Like that sequence, if especially if we're supposed to stay with this character. And, of course, there's other context to these scenes as well, because given the greater narrative. But I'd say the physics, making that consistent, because that keeps you're able to create danger. Especially if we know that, let's say there's something heavy that's going to fall on a character. If this wall is almost going to crumble, I really feel fear for this character, especially if they're just a regular person. But if I just saw this character jump 15 feet in the air and then do a backflip prior to landing before this wall, I'm not that scared for the character, because this is obviously not a real person. So grounding things in reality, being very intentional about choreography and the way that characters shift their weight subtly from one side to the other, because a lot of that humanity and the immersion of that and the tangibility of what's happening comes across in how the subtle movements. Because once you understand the subtle movements, I always go to like someone like Takeshi Koike, any of his contemporary work, he is a contemporary, but in terms of his newest work, right, the Lupin OVAs and stuff like that, you'll notice, especially like something like Fujiko's Lie or Goemon's Blood Spray, it's not about so much crazy stuff happening in each shot. Characters are not flipping a million times, and we see that a lot in Sakuga. But when they do make a movement, you're getting all of that gesture. Like when somebody pulls their sword out, you're getting the grip on the handle, the adjustment, the then pull to this, and then so that makes that one moment feel much more grand, and you're learning when to slow stuff down in order to highlight certain aspects of movements. And really it all helps you get into the POV, because you want to try to get into the POV, a specific POV of a character, so that we can feel for someone. And I think that those are the main things. And clarity that comes with screen direction, not breaking the 180, though that's not as important in action. It's all about when the characters reset. Because when the characters are moving around each other, they're moving around, you can cut around and stuff like that. But that's why you then pull back out to a wide that resets where our characters are. And if our characters are going from left to right when they're winning, they can be moving from right to left when they're losing. They could be being pushed back. Or you could flip the 180 for that sense, where our characters are moving, they're in a whole other way. But when we reset and our character has now taken command again, the protagonist, we can reset to what our original screen direction was, so that they can continue to progress on with the story. So things like that, I think those are the most important. And also, like I said, cutting on action, that just helps either action or in any kind of staging, because it makes it feel more real. And I'm a person that likes to stage things in the way that live action stages things, and the animation directors I was were influenced by live action cinema more way less than they are influenced by animation. And I think that a lot of animation today they're like copies of copies, and that's not meant to be derogatory. That's just in the sense of you can see that they're influenced by animation and they're regurgitating animation. So now animation has its, especially anime, it's kind of got its own language. But the stuff that I loved, like the Ghost in the Shell, any Genro, a lot of that stuff, it is more grounded, and you would see the threshold of that being like Bebop the movie, because it's really is self-aware that it's a hand-drawn medium. So the physics are the same, but they take the time to do really cool push perspective shots that might be too stylish to use in live action, even though the rest of the movie is kind of staged like live action. That might take you out of it in live action because it's like, oh, this is way too stylish for this push perspective shot. It's not grounding me in this gritty reality, but they're able to do that, and it flows like jazz, just like the music. So just being aware of that, being aware of what your medium is, learning how to maximize on that is also another thing to keep in mind as well.
I always love discussion about like the grammar of filmmaking, but to your point too about like grounding some of the physics and giving the characters stakes. If a heavy safe is about to fall on Wile E. Coyote, we're not concerned for Wile E. Coyote. It's sort of funny,
right?
Because we understand that there isn't like a level of reality or in the physics of that world. Whereas if it was about to fall on a normal person who can like break an arm or something, that's not funny. That's scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and you can take that time to build out that where it's like, oh, the character sees that safe falling. You can take that time to really, and that's the place where you can milk the tension where character's stuck, they're trying to get out from under this thing, we keep cutting up, it falls a little bit more, they can cut back, they're trying to get up, it falls a little bit more, and then right there you've built up the tension in the scene, you've made it, or you've given us danger. And really I just want to help people evoke that emotion that you get whenever you don't know what's going to happen. And keep them there the whole time, just by breadcrumbing them a little bit, and just taking them on a roller coaster. I think that's what good action should do. It should take you on an emotional roller coaster where you just, even if you know that the hero might live, just the narrow escapes and upping that level of like danger, imminent danger at all times. And that was something that we talked about in our board class where I was like, don't have characters ducking by a mile, where have the character have a swipe at their face right here, and then right at the end they're able to go on. That way it just feels like, oh, they just got away, and focusing on that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I want to throw a question to both of you. Do you have any advice for artists who want to improve their skills?
Errol, yeah, I'll throw it to you. I'll just monologue for a minute.
Yeah. I say for artists trying to improve their skills, know which skill it is you're trying to improve, right? Seek out the resources or the inspiration for that skill set. Like you see somebody's art style you really like, okay, take that artwork, really break it down, think about their thought process behind it, and try to redraw it. Like that's how I think a lot of us learn to draw, right? Is just draw it, recreate what it is you see. And then I think in that you start learning how to take on those properties, those traits, and then you could do it in your own, for your own style, depending on what it is. So I think like for me now, I just got a Cintiq. I'm trying to rake in how to draw in Storyboard Pro better from working on the Wacom Intuos tablet instead. So much more real estate. I'm like practicing, like getting shorthand down and just, okay, I just did all these roughs in this amount of time versus how long it was taking me before on my tablet. So getting gestures done for like figures or something, if it's a style, just look at it and just really be patient with yourself that you'll get there and be intentional in that aspect. So pick something specifically, because it's hard to try to take a bunch of things at once and try to learn it all. So break it down. Like each week in class, we learned something different. First it was the thumbnail stage. We read the script, then the thumbnails, then after thumbnails, we did our roughs, and after roughs, we did our cleans. And just within that, there was all this different wiggle room to learn different things. And I know like in taking classes, for me, it's like you want to learn and hoard all these resources sometimes and obviously make note of those things, but sometimes it's hard to use things because like if you don't use it, you lose it, and you don't know when to use this thing. Like we feel like in school, like, oh, they made us learn all this math, and when am I ever going to use it in life, right? And then, oh, lo and behold, you learn it, or you get to use it one time or something like that, but you'll have to refresh it. So I like when I'm getting intentional, if I'm trying to go for a certain type of scene, now I'm just like hoarding the resources and going frame by frame now, and like really trying to understand the process or energy behind it. So I think it's like a case by case thing. Like once you cross all those thresholds and get to that certain point of like, what is it I need to do? How can I do it? Learn to do it, then do it. And then rinse, repeat just over and over again. So yeah, get really specific, know your influences, and have fun. Have fun.
Yeah. I guess to add on to that, the main thing is to know what it is you're trying to accomplish. You know, like what is it you're trying to study? Are you trying to establish a style? Are you trying to get better at life drawing? Are you trying to get better at gesture? Are you trying to get better at composition? And then really just isolating those things and doing studies of each one. Like Errol said, it's hard to level up all these bars at once, right? You know, and put points in the whole skill tree at the same time. It doesn't work that way, right? You gotta put that point here before you can get the synergy from this one, right? You gotta unlock that perk first. So I think a lot of that has to do with it as well. And you can't, one thing I always tell people, you can't supplement mileage. You just can't. So you're gonna have to draw every day. You gotta draw every day. And depending on how you study, it determines what bars you level up. A lot of times when people, even character designers, when they want to learn how to draw characters with more weight, I'm like, well, you got to put yourself in more situations where you have to problem solve how characters are shifting their weight. It's hard to do that if you're just drawing once and then you're taking that to finish, right? You're only learning in that little bit of time that you 5-10 minutes that you're doing a gesture. The rest of it, you're doing something else. You're not even using the same skill set. So I encourage people to storyboard, because I'm like, look, just learn how to storyboard, tell a story, do some acting. By the end of that, you'll be better at gesture. And then that makes its way and bleeds into, you know, your illustration work and everything, because you can ground your characters more and make them feel more human. So I definitely think that is a main thing. And if you're trying to do style, if you're trying to find a style, it's about complete languages. Like find an artist who has a big body of work that you like. And if you can find that, and then they have a lot of different types of characters in their style, style is a language. And so and people that have very fleshed out styles, they're very fluent in their language. So you want to learn their vocabulary. So you can use them like, okay, I see how they problem solve this kind of face. I see how they problem solve this youthful kind of face, and so on and so forth. And then use that as an opportunity to at least have a system to compare and contrast your stuff to. And people that have complete drawing languages, systems, are the people that I typically gravitate towards, you know. And that's what you'll find that in animation a lot too, because people have to be forced to draw on style. So a whole crew, so you have thousands of drawings of that stuff to pull from as well. So yeah, it's about studying the right way, and understanding that you can't supplement mileage. You're gonna have to draw every single day to try to get better, and be honest with yourself and know that everybody else, it's a very competitive industry, and you know, you'll get there, but just make sure you're having fun. You know, it's all about having fun. You don't want to study too much. And the last thing I'll say is, whenever you're doing your own stuff, that's kind of like putting it all together, right? Because you're trying to hoop. Let's use the basketball as a metaphor. You're doing dribbling drills, you're doing layup drills, you're doing jump drills, and all that stuff. But you're doing your own work is really putting it together in the game, and that's also important. So it's important to do your own stuff, so that you're knowing how to problem solve, and you just don't get stuck in study mode, because the job requires you to make decisions. The job requires you to make creative decisions, and you want to try to develop that confidence as well, you know. And I think that, you know, sharing your work builds that confidence, and then having a good community, like, you know, we talk about our Discord, they still sharpen steel. These guys hold each other accountable, and just share information. So I think that those are the main things for sure.
Speaking of sharing work, Errol, are there any like specific shots from this animatic that you really are proud of, that you really want to show off?
Yes. I thought you'd never ask. Let me see. So monsters, muscles, right? That's my thing. So as we start getting to those transformations, I like drawing the characters like on a model like this, because when there's a smaller amount of frames, right, you can like, let me plus this drawing up a little bit more. But when it's like one frame, 2 frames, it's like, okay, why am I noodling this one so much more? So it's like you just got to move on.
Mhm.
For the transformation sequence, or actually even this. So we talked about the fight choreography. I really at least wanted to have 1 to 2 shots per
Mhm.
per interaction per fight with the characters. So like Julia's interaction with Quint. Sorry.
He got pieced up. Yo,
Yeah.
that last kick was like, yo.
So like
That was a cool dodge.
So like I'm proud of this. It's figuring out some of the mechanics for the action. And the script called for like they pieced them up, but I wanted to keep it as vanilla as possible just so my brain didn't go crazy. So other people play different ways and created that struggle. I was just like, it says they beat him up, so we just gonna have him beat him up.
Well, and the assignment is to also get through the assignment. You know, we had a lot of people that they opened up their scene so much because it ended up being fun, but it ended up being like, this is 600 panels. I had like 1 or 2 people who were like, oh, you really did. This is a handout right here. This is a full assignment. So, and that was cool to see as well. But, you know, it is about finishing it too, you know, because you want to try to putting a button on it is an important part of it too, you know, it's as opposed to just going forever, you know.
Yeah, and like I'm still so much I want to like study more now to like smooth these out and like, okay, how can I add more action? Like, add another scene here, add another scene there. But it was like you said, it was finishing. So I worked with what I had and I plucked up what I could as far as friends helped me with camera stuff later on and just a little bit more frames to show more impact. So I was extremely grateful for that. But transformation, I looked up so much reference. I looked, like I said, Underworld. Really just look up transformation on YouTube and try to capture that energy and the things that I liked. Try to convey that. So I was still like tweaking these towards the end, like how could I show more impact or more like movement and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show my designs. Like I spent time on them designs, so I was like, let's get to it as possible. And it was so like, don't go so clean, don't go so clean. I'm like, all right.
I mean, hey, that's a part. It is hand drawn. It's a hand drawn medium, so it's cool to put that level of finesse in there. That stuff is, especially if it's intentional, like and you pick your spots, you know.
Broke the lemon there. Yeah, and I changed brushes because earlier was that other I forget the solid brush. And it gave me a certain type of look, but then I was like doing too much detail. So by the end, I figured out, like I know my muscles. So I was just like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I know how to do this, and then I was getting it. So transformations I really love. Homie Chris helped me push the camera on these ones.
These are great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we are almost out of time. Errol, where can our viewers find more of your work?
You guys could follow me at Eros_Aries on Instagram. It's EROS_ARES. Gods for Love and War. Hard to restore myself back to the cat I was before. But then
bars.
And Twitter, same deal, just _after with 3 lowercase i's. And then website is epetgrave3.com. So yeah, check me out. Definitely inspired to keep making stuff. So yeah, this was fun. Thank you so much.
And Chase, where can people find more information about the work that you do and learn about upcoming courses?
Okay, so we'll go courses first. So I'm really active on projectcity.tv. You know, so I had my character design course recently this summer. This fall, I'll be storyboarding from beginning to end the first 8 minutes of my film, which I'm really excited about. Like I'm so excited, and I'm gonna do all of it in Harmony too eventually once I move past the board stage. So I'm looking forward to that also. So that'll come up in the fall. So you'll check that out. I typically put that information up on my Instagram. I'm really active on Instagram, not as much as I can be. So that's Instagram.com/Saint Chase. So SAINTCHASE, all one word. If you want to look up the stuff I worked on, you can always search me on IMDb. I got a long list of stuff I've been a part of on there, as well as my Twitter at @DChaseConley. But yeah, those are the ones I'm most active on. I have an art station as well, but if you really want to catch me, I'm typically more active on my Instagram, especially because you can kind of upload high resolution stuff these days without, so that was my biggest thing. But yeah, most of my stuff is NDA anyway, so I don't post that much, but when I do post, those are the places I post.
Sorry. So I want to thank both Errol and Chase for joining us for today's discussion. This was a really great conversation. I really loved seeing the scenes from this animatic. And I'd also like to thank our audience for joining us for today's discussion on storyboarding action sequences. If you're interested in storyboarding, our viewers can download a fully featured 21-day trial of Storyboard Pro from our website at toonboom.com. And be sure to tune into next week's discussion panel. We'll be interviewing 4 artists to discuss the whole process of assembling portfolios, and you won't want to miss it. So be sure to tune in next time.